Hey everyone, it's Rob Foglia and Jessica Klein with Foglia Properties here at Keller Williams Realty in Nashville. And we're coming to you live today because it is October 1st. So it's October and first day of the month, first Friday of the month. And we want to discuss what the market looks like today. We have last month's stats are now available. And so we're going to dive into some of that. You ready to get started, Jessica?
Absolutely. Let's see what kind of changes we have.
Awesome. And so let's get off this entire MLS because our MLS recently has added even areas out of state, and we service Middle Tennessee, we service the greater Nashville area, and so let's dive in and look at some things here. So first, and let me get this little Facebook thing out of the way, and let me get we'll look at the average sales price here for Davidson County. We'll start off with this, and one of the reasons I wanted to start off with this statistic is if you remember, we saw a couple of months in a row where it had dropped. And I think last month, even Jessica, you had said, well, I wonder if that's a bigger trend, like a trend that we're about to start seeing. We'd seen this rapid increase in price. Are we actually going to see it drop in price now? Is it going to start leveling out? And I wasn't sure. Obviously, we don't know what the market's going to do, but it's not abnormal to see a slight drop here or there. As you can see, even going back the last few years, it's even in 2018, it dropped 2 months in a row. So it's not abnormal to see that. And we can see it bounced up here, and year over year, it's still up almost 20%, which is crazy. It's a great market for sellers, right?
Yeah. And so definitely, if you look at this full trend, and I wonder if we do, I forget that option where it says monthly right now.
Yeah.
If we even that out, I forget, will you click on that so I can see
Yeah, so we can do
there
like
you go, rolling 12 months,
rolling 6 months,
so we can
rolling
see
12 months.
Yeah. So that's a perfect one. So when we take out those really dramatic month over month, we're still seeing this steady trend and pretty solid increases in the past, well, many years, really, if we're looking at the full graph.
Yeah. One of the reasons why we look at this month over month too, just so everybody knows why it kind of looks like one of those EKGs and it's going up and down, every month, is because it helps give us a true picture of today's market versus if you look at a rolling 12 months, this is going to average out over the last 12 months. And while the last 12 months has been a strong seller's market, and you can see even right here, you've got up 18% if you use the rolling 12-month numbers. When we look at some other things like days on market, that doesn't necessarily give us as close of a true picture of what today's market is actually doing. In fact, here that's a good transition to look at days on market, and we can look at, I'd say, the average here. Actually, days on market's the bad one in our system. I always forget because that's the system looks at it all funny. But months of supply is a good one because we see the ups and downs, and you can see. I mean, again, we're seeing it drop even more significantly, which is, again, it's just showing an inventory shortage, and all that. To me, what that means, if I'm a homeowner, take action now. If I want to move, of course, take action now because now is the time where you can capitalize on this inventory shortage. And if I'm a buyer, what that means is we've got to make our offers as competitive, as strong as possible. If you're a buyer that wants to get a home for 70 cents on the dollar, it's not the time. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be rude about it or be a Debbie Downer, but it's just not the time to be doing that. Now's the time to maybe set your cash aside, and maybe at some point the market will be like it was 10 years ago, and yet it's not that way today.
Absolutely. And we even just had a buyer, earlier this week, and they had their very first offer accepted, and it was great terms, and that was a huge win. And I'm sure later on we're going to look at percentage of list price that people are going under contract for. But it is pretty interesting looking at this month's of supply that we're having yet another month with a substantial decrease here. So like you said, if you have a home to sell, especially if it's an additional home, so not your primary, now would be an amazing time to consider selling it, because it's going to be very rare if it ever happens again in the future that you're going to have this kind of leverage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And like if you look at this, and maybe this is just to get a good visual here, it's good to maybe use the rolling 3 months or rolling 6 months so you can see it a little smoother. But y'all can see how every single year it's basically a bell curve. It peaks, for months of supply, it peaks and toward the middle of the year. It starts off low and then ends low. And typically it's a bell curve though. And you can see over the last 12 months, it has not been that way. I mean, I guess it's a bell curve that's going off a cliff, you could almost say. And it just means that there's low inventory. I'm curious, let's just pull up Rutherford County as well. Rutherford County, where Murfreesboro is. And you could see even less inventory, less than a month of inventory, which is insane. It's even less than Davidson County. Jessica, so you threw out the number percent of list price. Let's look at
Yes.
that. And so this is the average percent of list price, and I'll go back to Davidson in a second. But so this is all price ranges, Rutherford County. You can see it's still a strong seller's market. However, that is changing maybe a little bit. We'll see if that trend continues to go down, but it's still at what 102%, which is still this means that in order to get a home, typically you're paying above asking price on average, sometimes well above asking price, because again, that's an average. Doesn't mean we can't get you a great home. I mean, like Jessica just mentioned, a client of ours in Murfreesboro, one of the reasons why I wanted to pull up Rutherford County. We put them under contract over the weekend at asking price. And so while that used to be, oh man, paying all the way at asking price, for today, that's 2% under market value, or under what the average is for market value. And again, that's an average. There's going to be some that are well above that number.
Yeah, there's so many factors that go into that. I mean, how well the home is priced and
Sure.
what kind of other terms the seller is looking for or the buyers have to offer. So there's a lot of there are a lot of variables in there.
Absolutely. One other stat we'll look at here real quick, and that's for Davidson County, again, Nashville's county. One of the reasons I want to point this one out is you can see it's still above 100%. It's above 101%. So it still means that most homes are going above asking price, and on average are going over 1% above asking price. Not quite as high as as Rutherford counties. There's a lot of different factors. It could be just like you said, Jessica. Maybe some homes are overpriced. It's also somewhat of a product of the months of supply. Well, while that's still super low, 1.3 months, it's not 0.8 months like we just saw here in Rutherford County. So again, just something to be thinking about.
Yeah. And this could be, I mean, I don't know if other people have been hearing this as well. But a couple times over the past few weeks, I've heard people mention the market is softening. And maybe this is a statistic that they're looking at. I don't know if this is enough data to really support that necessarily. But it's something to keep in the back of our minds and something to keep an eye on, like we always do.
Well, I mean, Jessica, like anything, it's relative, right? It's
Yeah.
all about perspective, and it's all relative. And in fact, I was at our office yesterday, and talking with a handful of our colleagues, and we were, in fact, we had somebody say that, oh, maybe they were like, is it just me or is the market softening? And I mean, this is a perfect example of it. And here, let's just pull up Rutherford again, just because it's a little bit easier, I think, to see. It's not quite. You can see all the ups and downs here, but you can see really the peak and then dropping just a little bit. Yeah, I mean, if you look at July to September, so what, 2-3 months, and you see what a 0.6 difference between those two. Yeah, I mean, it's gone down, the average sales price to list price, but it's still an extreme seller's market. I mean, there's no
Yes.
way around that. It just means to me that maybe some buyers are getting to the point where they're just not willing to pay that 5%, 10% above asking. You can call that softening if you want. To me, it's still an extreme seller's market, and that's not changing for a minute. And it's really not changing until this changes, new listings. Again, and just so we can see it a little bit easier, when we look at the just like when we looked at months of supply, when we look at it, the amount of new listings, typically it's that bell curve, right? Starts off low, goes high in the middle of the year and comes down, right?
Yep.
When we look at this year, that never happened. I mean, this was the bell curve where it never even got above what we saw in December last year for new listings.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Barely got off the ground. And
exactly.
what's interesting about this this graph in particular is we don't ever really regain that ground, right? Like new listings. I mean, if we don't get that big bell curve, then it's pretty much never going to be there. This is not the kind of graph where we will generally see a big correction in future years.
Well, yeah, I'm glad you said that, Jessica, because again, and it's tough to see when we look at it like this. So let's look at it rolling. But again, I pulled it up for Davidson County so we can see the same type of a graph. And when we look at it at a rolling 6 months, what tends to happen is some of these homes, and let's just use last year as an example, some of these homes that were listed in the middle of the year, maybe those weren't priced correctly, and those sat a little bit longer and went under contract in a November or a December. And so it was some of those homes that were available because there were less options, say in June, July of this year. we're not going to see that many options of what we're saying. And so I for one would forecast continued low inventory based on what we're seeing, and just the reality of it, that there just haven't been the new listings that we tend to see. In fact, Davidson County year over year, month to month is down almost 30%. Rutherford County, probably the same, if not more. Let's double check. 20, a little bit less, but still down 24% month over month is still a huge number. And you're right. I mean, it's causing less options, and just means that when we find the right option, let's take action. If the right option's not there, that's okay. Don't force it. And yet at the same time, it might mean you're renting for a little while longer if you're renting, or it might mean you're in your current home for a little while longer, but inaction might cause you to be stagnant as well.
Yep, absolutely. So overall, pretty much we're seeing the same story as last month. Continued low inventory, and yeah, and nothing super notable in changes compared to last month.
Well, I mean, and look at the amount of homes for sale, Jessica. I mean, before we sign off here, I mean, in Rutherford County, the amount of homes for sale year over year is down almost 74%.
Yeah, still, I mean,
yeah,
crazily low.
It just continues to get lower and lower. That's what makes it such a seller's market. Like, in fact, I spoke with somebody about a week or so ago, and I was telling them, this is a seller's market that we're in. And they're like, oh, it's a bull market, trying to sound all stock markety, right? Which is, hey, that's fine. No judgment when it's coming from me. However, no, when we're talking about one thing, which is a home, you're not buying shares of a stock where there's thousands of them available. You're buying one home that's out there. And so it's almost like, and I hope I don't butcher this, but there's an example in a book that I think you and I have both read, called Shift. It's a real estate book, but they talk about how if you're a teacher and you're proctoring an exam, and the students need a number 2 pencil, and you've got 1 pencil left that you can give, and 3 students need it. All of a sudden, those students are going to be like, well, hey, I'll give you $1. Well, hey, I'll give you $2 for it. I'll give you $4 for it. They're going to start bidding up for it because they need that pencil. And yet, if you were to have 10 pencils and only 3 students there needed it, and they're going to pay you for it, they're not giving you $10 for the pencil. They're probably going to be like,
they could pay whatever they want.
Exactly. And we're in the market right now where there's 1 pencil for 10 students. And so there's 1 home for however many buyers. And that's and this is a perfect example of it, where inventory is down so much. And what I mean by that, in Rutherford County today, 624 homes available. In September of 2020, 2,300 homes available. I mean, so that hopefully that type of a difference can kind of wake people up and see this is the difference. Davidson County, same thing, 2,000 homes available last year in September, almost 5,000. That's why it's down, inventory is down so much. That's why the options are limited. That's why homes are selling for as much as they are. So all the people out there that are saying, wait a minute, I'm going to wait until the market crashes and the market tanks, we're in a bubble, all the millennials speak, the stuff I hear on TikTok, not bashing my generation because I'm a millennial as well, but all the stuff that I hear all these quote unquote experts saying, waiting for these foreclosures. Guys, that only happens when this number goes up, and this number is continuing to go down. And so don't wait because you think something's going to happen later on.
Absolutely. So if someone is rolling this around in their mind and something kind of piqued their interest, but they're not sure what they want to do, what's the first step for getting information?
Call us. I mean, that's the simplest way to say it. Just call me. You can reach me at 615-591-5665. If you're seeing this on Facebook, comment, PM me. That's fine as well. Email us. If you're seeing this through email, just hit that reply button. Start that conversation. I mean, if you know us, and hopefully you watched enough of this video to know us by now to see that we're not going to high pressure you to do anything that's not in your best interest. We just want to give you the right information. I truly believe there will be people who, because for whatever reason, they're waiting, they're sitting on the sidelines right now. And then in 12 months or 24 months, whenever we start to see a little bit of a normalized market, they're going to be like, well, man, where are those 20 offers that I heard so much about? This is the time. This is the time to get that. And if you're a buyer, I know it can be a scary time right now, and yet we can still make, just like that success story we talked about of our clients over the weekend, we can make that happen for you too.
Absolutely. I love it. Well, all right, everybody. Thank you so much for watching today. And we are looking forward to seeing you next week.
I appreciate y'all. Talk to y'all soon.
Bye.